Power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Luis, why don't you open us up this morning in prayer?
Praise God. Welcome. Appreciate all of you coming out this morning. We're going to get into our final lesson, if I can find the right app, the final lesson in our character or study. It's not going to be the last week, but this is the last topic for the next probably 3 weeks is what they seem to run about, depending on the conversation. And then we're going to have Brother Carl Gatson give us a Sunday school on finances. He's actually written some sort of presentation that he's published and made available. He'll explain all that, but he's dealt with finances all his career. He's got pretty good insights, and so this isn't going to be economics 101. You don't have to worry about getting in over your head, but he's going to be helping us understand some of the principles of financial blessing and prosperity. So I'm looking forward to that. Probably kicking in about 3 weeks. Meanwhile, we're going to continue in this character study, and we're going to cover our last issue. We've covered honesty. Amen. It's good for Christians to be honest. Then humility, loyalty, respect, authenticity, generosity, courage, self-control, and forgiveness. I walked through those slowly just so you could put a little marker in your head, grab onto a couple of those, go back, revisit them, think about them, because this is an ongoing pursuit. You're going to spend your whole life making your character. It will become a character that reflects Christ, or it will become a character that reflects something else, which is never good. So these discussions hopefully are helpful to you. I did notice that the forgiveness topic was very, very well received. Lots of input, lots of thought, lots of conversation between Sunday school. So obviously that was a hot button issue. That's something that we're all wrestling with and coming to grips with. So this marks the beginning of our final study, the 10th character virtue. And if you will get our 1 Thessalonians 5, Josiah, and then I'm going to need Psalms 12:1. Richard, Micah 7:2, Anthony, Psalms 78, 5-9, Lawrence, Sam, get me Psalms 23, verses 27 and 28. I need Hosea 4, verse 12, Richard. James 4:4, Dylan. Jeremiah 9:2, Jake, and Hosea 1:2. Okay, Daniel. That'll get us through, and then I'll have a few more that we'll look at if we get to them. Okay, let's have 1 Thessalonians 5, 23 and 24.
May God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. The one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it.
Okay, so the title of this study is Blameless, Thoughts on Christian Character, and it's rooted in this thought that may God preserve you, spirit, soul, and body, blameless, beyond accusation, that these character elements that we're discussing will cause your life to have such a testimony that people will understand that you are a Christian just by the way you live, your conduct, the way you think. It all plays out in all of the various arenas of life. And so we're getting into faithfulness. Faithfulness. Last topic, faithfulness. When Pompeii was destroyed by Mount Vesuvius, it was a horrific, cataclysmic explosion of a volcano. They were obviously, volcanoes give you warnings, but they didn't realize how imminent the explosion was, and so nobody got out of the city. It was an absolute ruin for Pompeii. And as they've excavated this through the years, they've found all manner of bodies that have been entombed in ash and in the volcanic rock that cooled. And here's these bodies perfectly preserved. And they found them all over the city. They found them in basements. They found them huddled together. They found them in all kinds of positions, obviously trying to get away from the explosion and the problem that followed. They found one fascinating form of a Roman sentinel, a guard, standing in his guard post, unmoved, with his spear. He just stood there and was killed. And I don't know how that all works, that the bodies were so well preserved. But here he is, entombed in the rock, and he did not leave his place of service. He died in that posture, while the earth shook beneath him, while the floods of ashes and cinders covered him. He didn't move. Faithful. Faithful to his duty. Faithful to his place. It's a remarkable illustration. So what do we mean when we say faithfulness? What comes to your mind? What does faithfulness mean to you? Yeah. Loyalty, okay. Randy?
To stand by, when things get rough, to don't leave or don't get discouraged. And also it can be when things are easy and smooth going, we can get not to be in our place, take things for granted when things are easy also.
Okay. Faithfulness is not leaving when things get tough, and it's not getting inattentive or lethargic when things are going great. It's paying attention to your duties. Richard.
Yeah, I was saying it's it's doing what you're told to do regardless of your circumstance or your emotions or how you feel.
Okay, doing what you're told to do regardless of your circumstances or how you feel about it. Okay, so the dictionary has several definitions for faithfulness. One is lasting loyalty and trustworthiness in relationships, especially marriage and friendship. Faithfulness, think of that. Faithfulness in marriage. That's a term that we're all acquainted with. It's being loyal in the relationship. The second definition is the fact or quality of being true to one's word or commitments as to what one has pledged to do or professes to believe. So in other words, I've accepted my responsibility. This is what I believe, this is what I say, and therefore I'm going to be true to that. Okay? The third definition is the fact or quality of being dedicated and steadfast in performing one's duty, working for a cause. The author James Merritt says, faithfulness is being where you are needed to be, doing what is needed to be done, and staying until the job is completed. It's a great explanation for faithfulness. It's being where you are needed to be, doing what is needed to be done, staying until the job is complete. If you do a Google search for faithfulness, you come up with unwavering loyalty, steadfast commitment, and consistent support demonstrated through reliable action and truthfulness, even when difficult. It involves keeping your word, being dependable. You can be depended on. Acting as a cornerstone in relationships, duty, and faith. So this is a good picture of what faithfulness is. And faithfulness is meant to be part of our character. We should be people that are loyal and can be depended on. We did a whole study on loyalty. But faithfulness is a different facet to this. It means that you're consistently doing and where you need to be, what you need to be doing, and you're given to whatever that is, whatever that requires, your job. You need to show up for work. You're not faithful if you're calling in sick all the time. You're not faithful if you don't show up. You're not faithful if you go to work and just screw around. So work is an arena of faithfulness. Marriage, obviously, is an arena of faithfulness. I'm committed to one woman for the rest of my life. She's been with me for 51 years, and we're going to stick together for the next 50. Maybe. Unless I check out first. But the bottom line is that's what faithfulness is. It's consistent. That's not going to change. I'm not going to trade her in for 220s. I'm going to stay where I need to be doing what I need to be doing. So if you think about this, faithfulness, you can see that it's very much a broken characteristic in our society. We see it in sports. In the moment an athlete finds a better offer or finds out that someone else is making more money than he is, he begins to cast the net, look for another team, and look for a contract that gives him more money. He's faithful only to himself and his own interests. He's not faithful to the team. He's not faithful to those committed. He doesn't care less about the team. He just wants to make the most money that he possibly can. We see it in divorce, that we're dealing with a 50% divorce rate in the Western world. And people say, well, I don't have to be faithful to this. I'm just going to move along. I don't have to stay committed to the vows that I've made. I swore before God and people that this was what I was going to do, but I'm not a faithful person. You can't trust my word. You can't expect me to stay in a marriage that's hard. How can there be any marriages if the escape hatch is marked when it gets hard? All marriages get hard at various times, and you have to be faithful. We see it in the rash of bankruptcies with people who decide for whatever reason that they no longer need to pay the debt that they've created. And again, I understand there are some times in life where medical things overtake us or different circumstances in life that lead to a bankruptcy, and it happens. And so I'm not trying to bring guilt and condemnation, but the bottom line is we've got to be faithful when we say to somebody, if you'll give me this, I'll give you that, right? And that's the way life should be lived. We see it in the politicians, and they break promises. They're very good at making them, but they're not faithful in keeping them. This is what we're going to do for you until they get elected. Then they're not going to do it for you because they're not faithful. The character issue of faithfulness. My word is my pledge. What I am going to do is exactly what I said I'm going to do. That is a very missing element in our culture today. One of the things that is blowing people up about Trump is he's doing what he said he would do. And we've never had a president that I can remember that's ever done that. I've been around a long time. Every president that we've ever had, Republican and Democrat, has made vows that they didn't keep. Every one of them said that they would move our embassy into Jerusalem. Not one of them did it. Not one. So they're all, politicians will say anything to get elected. That's why we don't put our faith in politics. Okay, so the issue is faithfulness. We see it in countless people who backslide. To fail to hold to the truth of God's word when it becomes inconvenient to do so, when it's no longer pleasant, when it's no longer fun, when I'm not feeling it, when I'm not getting the vibes, then I can walk away from a covenant that I have with my God. People drop out of ministry because it's no fun anymore. It's just, it's a drag. It's hard. I have to go every week to practice, and it takes my time, and I'm not getting the kick out of it that I used to get, so I'm quitting. I'm getting out. And it doesn't matter who it leaves in the lurch. I'm just not happy with this anymore. I can't remember what the exact statistic is, but the number of pastors that drop out of ministry is unbelievable. It's like 85, 90%. It's this massive amount of people who said, this is my calling. This is my calling before God. This is what he wants me to do with my life. Not anymore. I guess God's schizophrenic. I guess God changed his mind. No, what happened was you got into ministry and you found out what it was all about. And you said, I didn't sign up for this. Well, that's what ministry's all about. But see, faithfulness understands that if I'm committed to something, it doesn't matter if down the road I find out my commitment has led me into a difficult situation. I have committed to something. I'm not going to change that. Unless, of course, it turns out to be some kind of moral problem. There's something terribly wrong. I didn't know that this was going to lead to me having to steal or murder or whatever it may be, obviously. But when you make commitments that are legit, and be very careful not to play games with that thought. When you make a legit commitment, your commitment should be good. Mel.
Something happened in Las Vegas that proved how committed people can be to gambling.
Yeah.
They even, they'll go into great debt, but this one thing happened in Vegas. They're gambling, they're at the bar drinking, and a fire happened up high somewhere in the ceiling, above the ceiling. It burned so hot, it became hot enough that it broke through the ceiling, and as people opened the front door, it sucked that fire. And the fire rolled like a huge ball, burning people at the bar, at the gambling thing. What do you call those?
The slot machines?
Yeah, those slot machines, holding it. And it
jeez.
came through. The thing that made me think about it is your first
Pompeii,
example.
yeah.
Yes. And here they are, faithful, taking it, and as the fire came, where did they go? To the fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Sin never it doesn't demand of us faithfulness because we're addicted to it. We've already given ourselves to it. But it is a good way to look at it, is that we have the capacity to be faithful to whatever we choose to be faithful to. And if it's a sin, if it's an idol, whatever it may be, we can be faithful to that because it's part of the human makeup, the ability to choose to honor my commitments and to be faithful. But people get out of it, whatever their commitments may be, because other opportunities show up, or maybe they feel neglected or unnoticed, or something else comes along, and they say, well, this is no longer important. Jaden.
Tess. Oh. Talking about this, it reminds me when early on in my salvation, maybe a few months or around that time, I had to come to a point of decision. Was I actually going to commit myself to God? And luckily, by the grace of God, I made that genuine commitment. Before, I never made that commitment. I grew up in church. I grew up, knowing all of our stuff, but I never committed myself to Jesus. But when I finally did, it completely changed everything. Mm-hmm. And I've actually meant it in my heart. Like before, I didn't think I could serve God. I got all these things, but then I was like, no, I don't care what happens. I don't care if I do fail, if I fall, I don't care. I'm never going to turn away from you again. Because being a prodigal, that's what I did. Right. I turned away from God, right, knowing the truth. And so I told God, no, I'm never going to do this again. I'm committing my life to you. And it's been amazing.
It's been amazing.
God's great.
Yeah. And that is the foundation of faithfulness, is that immovable, rock-solid commitment. I guarantee you, if you don't make that kind of commitment as a Christian, you won't be here when Jesus comes back. You probably won't be here a year from now. Because Christianity has a lot of demands on our heart, mind, and life that we don't really even want to deal with. We'd rather avoid those things altogether. And so when you make that decision, it's remarkable how you can hold on through anything. As he mentioned, even if I fail, I'm not going to let go. See, a lot of people, when they fail, they go, well, I guess this doesn't work. So in other words, Jesus isn't real, nothing works. But the problem isn't the commitment, the problem is your own heart. The problem isn't that Jesus let you down, the problem is you let Jesus down. We all do it. There's nobody in here that doesn't fail. But that's not your ticket to get out. And faithfulness requires you to stay in the covenant. People are not faithful to church. They show up when they want to. We have services 3 times a week. Then we have revivals. We have conferences. We do a lot. We're a busy church. You say, well, I only go on Sundays. That's not faithfulness. That's convenience. There's a difference between faithfulness and convenience. Faithfulness is when you don't feel like going to church, you go to church. Right? And I'm going to give you a very good reason in my sermon today to come to church. All right? It's very important. You can't live for God without that kind of commitment. There are people who are not faithful to tithe. They'll throw in what they feel like. They'll tithe this week. They won't tithe for a month. Right? I've told you many, many times, I don't go back and look at the tithe records because I want to love you all equally. And I don't want to look at your track record of unfaithfulness. But I want to tell you something. It's faithfulness that unlocks God's blessing. And when you're faithful to the tithe, you will have testimony after testimony of God's amazing provision for you. I have a life of it. That God has always met my need, taken care of me, because tithing is not on the table for me to pick and choose. Tithing has been settled a long, long time ago. People are not faithful to pray. And they pray when they get in trouble. They They don't develop a lifestyle of prayer. And then when they come up against a big bad demon, they don't have any kathud. Jesus said this kind only comes out by prayer and fasting. He's not talking about a one-off. He's talking about a lifestyle. He's talking about a faithfulness to the disciplines of Christianity. People are not faithful to read their Bibles. And then they have no answers for life. They're not faithful to share their faith. And that causes a great loss of the Spirit of God and the power of God in their experience. And all of these are basics to the faith. They're not the elite. They are just how Christians live, but they end up neglected because faithfulness hasn't been built into our character. Maybe another word for it is discipline. It takes discipline to be faithful. But you have got to make commitments that will not be broken. And if you fall off, you jump right back on. Beginning of the year, we always start with an annual Bible reading. We have these available. I'm not sure where it is at the moment, but there is a chronological Bible reading, day by day, way to get through the Bible in a year. And this is a very, very good thing to get into and develop the practice of this. It's 4 or 5 chapters a day, and you read in the Bible, and the one we're doing this year is chronological, which is a very interesting approach to the Bible. There's a lot of things in there that are kind of out of place in the timeline of history, and so this is a good way to do it. And, I don't know who has it. I know my wife has it. Somebody's got it. It's floating around. Check with me if you want to find out about it. I'll get you to it. But what's that? Paulina. There we go. Paulina. And so check with her. She's got it. So what you'll find is that from time to time you'll miss a day or 2 or 3. Right? And then what you say is, well, I'm too far behind now. There's no catching up. Well, of course you can catch up. You just got to kind of jump back into it. But what it starts with is at the beginning of the year, you make the commitment. I'm going to get through the Bible in a year. All right? And sometimes it's inconvenient. It's difficult. You can't do it on a certain day. I've been doing these for years. I guarantee you that you can do it. Sometimes I have to read 2 days' worth of my commitment. But it's just what you got to do if you're going to get through the Bible. Okay. So what you have to have this rock solid commitment in your life that this is what I'm going to do. Any question thus far, Randy?
No, Pastor, serving God is challenging. I get challenged regularly. When I come in here, we hear the preaching. We're challenged to serve God. Do you think that it's something that it's ingrained in us early on in life as kids? Because I noticed when I was in school and even my early years that when I was challenged, it made me strive to achieve or to stick to it. And I don't see that a lot in today's society. Say for instance in school today, kids aren't being challenged. No one is being challenged for anything anymore.
Yeah, kids are getting into college and they can't read. I have no file for that. But that's the world we live in. And so Randy raises a good point. He talks about building this in from childhood. It is a parent's responsibility to teach their children to be faithful to their commitments, right? I remember as a young boy, I think I was 10 years old. I told my dad I wanted a guitar. And he said, I'll buy you a guitar, but you won't ever play it. So the first thing he said is, you'll have to buy your own guitar. It's always a very good thing to do. That'll determine just how much you want it. So I had to save up my money, bought my first guitar, and when I bought it, he said, now, if you don't play that, we'll take it back. You have to stay with it. Because he understood that learning an instrument in the beginning is very challenging and not very satisfying. And your instrument makes all kinds of strange squeaks and noises, and it doesn't sound the way music sounds. And so you have to work your way through the hard part to get to the good part. But thank God. So if you get your kid working on an instrument, which I recommend you do, it's a wonderful thing for them to learn, you make them do it. You make them practice the piano. You make them practice the clarinet out in the garage. You make them stick with it, or whatever it may be. You make them stick with it, because that will teach them something incredibly valuable when they get older. Very, very important. And I think part of our problem in this generation is the absence of fathers, which right off the bat communicates faithfulness doesn't mean anything. You just wing it. And that's a terrible thing for kids to face. They have to understand there are things in life that cannot be negotiated. This is just solid. This is what we do. One of the things you want to teach your kids is we go to church every time the doors are open. If you teach your kids that you only have to go whenever you feel like it, your kids will not be Christians when they grow up. I guarantee you that. Just mark it down. Say, call me an idiot, call me an old man. But I've been doing this for 52 years. And I guarantee you, if you don't teach your kids that the most important thing in your life is your Christianity, they won't be Christians. And you're not going to teach your kids that it's important by laying out of church all the time. Amen. Now, you just want people to come to church. Of course I do. I want them to come to church so that they'll stay saved. So they'll make heaven their home. That's why I want people to come to church. I'll give it everything I got if only 2 of you show up. Amen. Because I'm faithful to my calling. All right? This is the way you have to approach life. I saw a couple hands. Jake. And then Carl.
Kind of tapping in on what you were just saying, the participation award
Yeah.
really hurt us. You know, you feel like you can be okay if you only give half an effort. I'll still get a ribbon. You know, it's like.
Yeah, right. Right. Okay. So part of the definition of faithfulness is you're doing what must be done. Again, no matter how challenging that is. So the participation award says it doesn't matter how you do it or how much effort you put into it or how much of yourself you give to it. You're going to get an award anyhow. And so that's lethal to the idea of faithfulness and diligence and being committed to do what you have to do in any given context. Okay, Carl.
Yeah, Pastor, one of the things that's helped me more in recent times than before dealing with faithfulness is it happened like a few years ago during the time when we were all in isolation and kind of, you know, in a position to do self-examinations, figure out who we are, what do we want to do. I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of have to be, I don't know, to not do that. I don't know, you know, who was in a position to not be able to do that. For me, I was struggling in a big way. You know, during that time I was working for the university, and I really had to lean into this idea that because I had no control over what was going on, I felt powerless, and it was just marginalized, and I was kind of losing my mind. So we have God. We like Randy was saying, we come here day in, day out, and that became my clarion call. I had to really lean into God, who God is. He's for me. If he's for me, who could be against me? I had to really dig deep, and because I was struggling, and I was just amongst many who I just felt oppressed. So one of the things we had in place during that time was corporate prayer, and it really took on a new meaning on Monday nights, and and I really got desperate because I didn't know if I was coming and going. And one of the things I went through, one of the vacations I took was in 2021, and it was the worst vacation of my life. It was crazy because I was facing losing a job because I wasn't gonna do a certain thing, and so I was gonna be out of a job December 31st, 2021. So what I did is during Thanksgiving break, we have a break. I actually applied for a new job. So I used the vacation to to study and contend for a new job. And the good thing, it should have been good news because I was able to get this job. It was $37 an hour, but they paid me $42 an hour. I got the job, and I did that because I was going to be without a job come January 1. And the good news is I was able to keep my existing job because I had gotten an exemption. So I left that other job, even though it was supposedly good. It wasn't good for me because it wasn't something I wanted to do, but I was desperate. But I started journaling during that time, and it's 7 days a week. I don't take days off because it's me tapping into God and what He has for me, and it's for me. So now I walk in that victory every day, and I tell you what, it's been a radical transformation in my life, the way I approach life, and it's morning prayer. It's amazing, and that's something we all have 24 hours in a day to do. But I like starting off that day, and then I walk in victory, no matter what's going to happen in the day. I have that kind of confidence and assurance. And
So you pray, and you mentioned journaling. Is that?
I do. This is what I do. I wake up in the morning.
Yep.
The first thing I do, I don't do coffee or anything like that. I go to my office.
I don't know how you do that.
I do.
That's
Well,
something.
It wasn't easy.
You can
at
come and
first.
get delivered
Practice.
after service.
So I do. I go right in to my prayer closet, which is in my office,
Yeah.
and it can be anywhere from it could be an hour, it could be up to 2 hours sometimes, because I get into a zone and I pray, I meditate, and then I write, I journal every day, and I don't know, it's well over 100 pages, my journal right now, just strictly with what God is dealing with me about during that day. And I do it every day. I don't take, even when I'm on a vacation, I'll do it. I don't take days off.
Okay, very good. So that's a practice that many, many Christians have followed through the years, and it helps unclutter your mind. It helps get your thoughts out, and it keeps a record that you can look back and see spiritual progress. This works for some people, doesn't work for everybody, but it is probably something that you might want to just experiment with a little and see if it works for you, because obviously Carl has gotten great benefit from it. So something you might want to look into. Okay, but the important thing, I think, is realizing that it is the faithful pursuit. It's the fact that he has given himself to something, that it's producing the desired results. I think it was Nietzsche who said that anything worth accomplishing is the result of a long obedience in the same direction. I'm committed to something. I follow that through over time, and it's down the road that you begin seeing the fruit of it. So anything worth doing requires this kind of commitment. Okay, Scotty?
Would a large part of faithfulness be dying to self, or complete self-abandonment? Because I see my faith, the areas where I lack faithfulness or have lacked faithfulness, die on the hill of what I want or what I think's going to be best for me in that case. And I'm listening to the study, and it's like, oh, well, I just gotta forfeit everything I want to do and make the decisions that don't necessarily benefit me from my perspective, and really just lean into the right thing to do at the right time, the right way, every time, and just faithfulness and dying go hand in hand?
They can. I wouldn't say that everything that you do involves self-denial. It might at first, but the reason why you're committing to it is you want something, right? You want to be a great athlete. Well, at first, a lot of pain in that, but then you get stronger and you get better, and you're always getting better, and you're thriving because of it. You're not dying, you're thriving. So I would say that in many scenarios, self-death is probably part of it, because you're doing something that you don't really want to do. But then when you start realizing the benefits of it, it's no longer self-death, it's joy, it's thriving. And so this is true of Christianity. When you first get started, when I first got saved, every day was a new high. It was joy, joy, joy. It was God picking me up and carrying me along in life, and it was perfect, and he was solving all my problems for it until one day he didn't. And it's like, oh, wait, God, you're supposed to be doing this. And God said, well, what are you going to do? Where do you get involved in this process? Because at the end of the day, God isn't interested in you just expecting him to fix everything in your life. In Judges, he says, I'm leaving enemies in the land so you'll learn how to fight. There are elements where your faith has to be strengthened by trial, and your wisdom has to grow by trial. There are things you can only learn through trial, and it's faithfulness that gets you through the trial so you can learn what you need to learn. Okay, Dylan, and then Sam.
A couple things. In Psalms, when he says, clean in me a new heart and give me a steadfast spirit, I wanted to understand more of what steadfast spirit meant. And in a definition I found in looking to what that meant, I like this, that it said, fixed in a purpose, direction, and resolution.
Yeah.
Is being steadfast. And that's helped me in my disciplines of prayer and reading and such, of being fixed in that purpose of it. And then also a while ago I had asked Carl, I said, what's kept you saved so long? And he gave me 4 things. He said, prayer, reading, evangelism, and fellowship. Yeah. And those are things that I've held on to.
Yeah, okay. Very, very good, Dylan. And so it's interesting that David has to pray for this, because he realizes the struggle of faithfulness. And he says, create in me this steadfast spirit, this fixed purpose. It's not going to move. It's true north for me. This is my bearings in life. This is what I've chosen. This is what I'm going to do. When you choose Jesus Christ as your true north, every devil in hell will try to get you to go south. So you have to realize, if you're not faithful, you're not going to make it. You have to set your commitment and be immovable in that. Sam.
Yeah, so going through school, I was always up there at the awards banquet getting an award, not for straight A's, but for perfect attendance. And so, that was instilled in me by my parents, you know what I mean? And then I kind of instilled that in my 2 sons, and to be faithful, if you make a commitment, you got to keep it, because I don't know, this is lost in this generation, but I can't tell somebody I'm going to do something and then look in the mirror and I didn't do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of lost in this generation because of commitment, and especially out in the harvest field, it's glaring, where we pray with people, we get a commitment. Yes, I'm going to come. Are you sure? Right? You want to, and then, okay, you're a man of your word, right? Yes, I am. No show, no call, ghost
Ghosted.
you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's lost, I believe. I don't know.
Well, again, it's a character issue. So as you're speaking, I'm thinking in Timothy where it describes the last days characteristics of people. One of them is truce breakers. They won't honor covenant. They'll just, this is disposable. All right? So yeah, we're dealing with a problem. And that's a great segue to get some of the scriptures. I didn't give this first, but I gave Psalm 78, 5 to 9. Somebody I gave that to. Read that for us. Psalm 78, 5 to 9.
I got 12:1, I think.
Nope, that's later. I gave that first, but I wanted to get 78. It's the third scripture I handed up.
I got it.
All right.
For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, the children who would be born, that they may arise and declare them to their children, that they may set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments, and may not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that did not set its heart aright, and whose spirit was not faithful to God, the children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the days of battle.
So here's this generational thing that Randy mentioned that Sam is bringing up, and it's this idea that fathers enter into a covenant that they pass on to their kids, and they pass it on to their kids. You've got to teach through the faithfulness of the next generation, and the next generation realizes that this commitment isn't negotiable. It's important to hold to the covenants that you make. And he's specifically talking about the covenant between Israel and God. And he says we don't want to end up like those who were not faithful. You got to be faithful. And then he talks about Ephraim. They had bows, but they wouldn't go to war. They had the equipment that they needed, but in the battle they turned away. That's exactly what we're talking about. You get saved, God's Spirit starts working in your life, and everything's fine as long as everything's fine. And then when everything goes to murder and mayhem, you take your bow and you go home. You're not willing to be faithful to the covenants you've made. And so here's this generational imperative. That's something that parents have to put into their kids, is the understanding that you can't live your life breaking commitments just because it's something that pleases you or something you'd rather do or something that's difficult that you'd rather not do. That doesn't factor in when faithfulness is real in your life. And so, as Sam said, this is something that we don't see much anymore. And I've listed a number of places in society where we see faithfulness breaking down. But you can ask somebody, I'll see you in church tomorrow, and they ghost you, and you never see them again. It's very, very common. People pray. They pray because they don't want to go to hell, but they don't pray because they want to commit to following Christ. Those are two different things, right? You can't have one without the other. You're not, so if you're going to follow Jesus into heaven, you have to follow him into heaven, don't you? You can't just go your own way. Jesus said this is the way. He said it's a narrow way. He said it's not an easy way. He said most people won't go this way. But you have to decide this is the way I'm going to go, because if I'm going to go be with Jesus, I got to follow him there. I can't go a different direction. I have to commit to this journey. All right? Very important. Emmanuel.
I remember I heard this thing. It's by this neurologist his name is Andrew Huberman, and he had mentioned that there's this muscle inside of the brain that the only way it grows is anytime you do something you don't want to do is when that muscle grows. And he says that they're finding that what it has to do is our will to live. And I found that interesting because Jesus said, if you lose your life for my sake, you'll find it. And I mean, yes, he could be talking about, in heaven, but at the same time, on earth, if we're doing all these things, denying our flesh, resisting it, that muscle is constantly growing, and we're finding that will to live.
Yeah, and Jesus was definitely talking about in this life. That wasn't a promise of heaven. That was dealing with losing your life in this life and finding it in this life. Right? That's for here and now, and this is true. It's not a literal muscle. It's a spiritual muscle. It's an intellectual muscle. It's part of your brain. But it lights up and it gets stronger, and so your brain has all these connections, right? These synapses. And it's fascinating. You read a couple good books on neuroscience and the chemistry of the brain and how it works. It's an amazing thing that God gave us. Some of us. Some of you went to the train station instead of the brain station. But most of us got a brain. Well, the truth of the matter is everybody got a brain. It's just a lot of people choose not to use it. But it is a fascinating thing, and you grow certain parts of your brain through the exercise, through the physical things that you do. So they have discovered that a part of your brain gets stronger and stronger, and that part of your brain is somehow connected to your will. And as your will is exercised, your will gets stronger, right? And you can walk away from addiction, and you can walk right into things that are challenging because you've developed this part of your will by constantly doing things you don't want to do. That's the key, isn't it? Doing the things that you don't want to do. There's a book, I can't remember the author's name, everybody will know it as soon as I mention it, but it's called Make Your Bed. And the idea is you start your day doing this thing. You're committed to doing this thing. You don't want to do this thing, but if you do it, it sets a pattern that sets the pattern of your day of doing things that you don't want to do. You're strengthening that part of your brain. There's a part of your brain that lights up when you play a musical instrument, a piano, a guitar, whatever it may be. They've watched this. They've measured this. And people that do this, a certain part of their brain literally, physically grows. So there are physiological differences that happen in your brain when you do the right things. When you don't do those things, it doesn't bode well for you. Okay? Let me get a couple more scriptures and then we'll get a couple more thoughts. Psalms, the first one, 12:1.
Help, Lord, for no one is faithful anymore. Those who are loyal have vanished from the human race.
So that's a few thousand years ago. And yet, we're seeing a breakdown. Micah 7:2.
The faithful man has perished from the earth. There is no one upright among men. They all lie in wait for blood. Every man hurts his brother with a net.
So these are previous generations, but they're looking at a breakdown that there's something happening in the human race where faithfulness is starting to take a beating. It's being lost as a core value, as something important in life. Proverbs 23, 27 and 28. Verses 27 and 28.
For an adulterous woman is a deep pit, and a wayward wife is a narrow well. Like a bandit she lies in wait and multiplies the unfaithful among men.
And multiplies the unfaithful among men. All right? So what we're dealing with here is a moral element in faithfulness. That many times where the challenge is a moral decision. And in this case, it's hedonism, it's sexual pleasure, satisfying the flesh. In this case, it has to do with adultery, but that's not the only battleground. Your faithfulness, your commitment will be challenged through your flesh, and it'll always have this moral connotation because you'll find scripturally the idea of a fool has a moral bent to it. There's a moral issue. There's something wrong in me. So why is it that faithfulness is disappearing? The psalmist points out. Why is it I can't find a faithful man? Because they'd rather do something else. There's something else that's appealing to them. And so they're putting aside all of the commitment, all of the decision. I remember when I think I was 10 years old, my closest friend, Woody Smith, and I made a covenant together. We will never do drugs. Ever. We're never going to smoke dope. We're never going to do any drugs. Less than a year later, we're both smoking dope. And that just devolved from there into all kinds of insanity. Why is it that at some point, here's the decision. I'm being offered the doobie. I knew. Wait. I'm not supposed to do this. I promised not to do this. Okay. Right? There was a moral choice being made at that moment. Because there's always a moral element to faithfulness. Always. You got to understand that. That's why it's a character thing. That's why it has to do with your internal realities. Nobody's going to make these decisions for you. You're going to have to make them for yourself. That's all we got. Yeah, okay. That's all we got time for this morning. We'll pick this up next week.